If you want dinner, then get down and lick it off the floor. That's what my son-in-law said as he knocked my plate to the ground. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I slowly stood up, adjusted my jacket, looked him straight in the eye, and whispered 3 words. His face went pale. But before I tell you what those 3 words were, tell me in the comments. If you were in my place, would you lick the food off the floor or walk away?
My name is Arthur Vance. I am 68 years old, and what I'm about to tell you happened on March 7th, 2024, a Sunday that changed my life forever. But to really understand what happened that night, you need to know who I am and how I reached that moment of absolute humiliation in my own house. I spent 42 years working as a civil engineer. I built bridges. I designed sewer systems for entire municipalities. I supervised housing projects in 3 different states. I did not get rich, but I earned enough to live with dignity and give my family everything they needed. My wife Rose was the love of my life for 45 years, until cancer took her in 2019. Since then, I live alone in a 2,000 square foot house in the suburbs of Chicago, a property I bought in 1995 when my only son Michael was born. Michael Vance is 42 years old. I raised him with principles. I paid for his college degree in business administration. I financed his master's in Boston, which cost $30,000. And when he married Linda in 2019, just 3 months after Rose passed away, I gave him a condo valued at $300,000 as a wedding gift. I wanted him to start his marriage without debt, without financial pressure. I thought it was the best thing I could do as a father. Linda was 33 when she married Michael. She is a digital influencer, or at least that is what her Instagram bio says, where she has now 58,000 followers. She posts photos of expensive restaurants, exotic trips, and designer clothes. At first she seemed superficial but harmless. Rose, in her final days of lucidity, before the morphine put her into a permanent sleep, grabbed my hand. She told me, "Arthur, that woman does not love our son. I saw it in her eyes during the engagement dinner. But Michael is blinded. Promise me you will always take care of yourself, that you will never let anyone trample on you, not even him." I promised her, although back then I did not fully understand her words. The first 3 years after Rose died were confusing. I immersed myself in grief, in the loneliness of this house that suddenly seemed too big. Michael came over on Sundays for lunch. He brought Linda, and I tried to be the nice father-in-law, the perfect future grandfather. But things started to change subtly, starting in 2022. Linda began making comments about the smell of the house, about how old people always cook the same thing, about how boring it is to spend Sundays here. Michael did not contradict her. He simply laughed uncomfortably and changed the subject. In 2023, when the twins Luke and Emma were born, I thought everything would improve. I was excited to be a grandfather. I bought cribs, clothes, toys, but Linda established rules. I could not visit them without giving 48 hours notice. I could not babysit them alone because I was too old and might forget something important. I could not give them sweets or contradict her parenting methods. Michael nodded to everything. My son, who used to call me 3 times a week, started contacting me only when he needed something. Money for car insurance, help with Linda's gym membership, loans for vacations. But there was a specific moment that changed everything. It was December 15th, 2023. I arrived at the condo I had given them with Christmas presents for the twins. I rang the doorbell. Linda opened it with an annoyed face and said specifically, "Arthur, you are interrupting me. I am filming content for my social media. Could you not call ahead?" I reminded her that I had sent a text 2 days earlier. She rolled her eyes and said, "Whatever. Leave it there and go. You smell weird, like mothballs and old age." She slammed the door in my face. That night, sitting in my kitchen, something broke inside me. It was not rage. It was clarity. Rose was right. Michael had chosen a cruel woman, and he himself had become an accomplice to that cruelty out of cowardice or convenience. I had given everything: money, time, unconditional love, and in return I received contempt disguised as jokes, distance disguised as busyness. I made a decision that night. I was going to reclaim my life, my dignity, my autonomy, but not with scandals or screaming. I would do it strategically, silently, preparing every move with the precision of an engineer calculating structural loads. During January of 2024, I began my plan. I hired George Miller, a lawyer specializing in family law and estates. I explained my situation and asked him about revoking donations. He confirmed that gross ingratitude by the recipient is a legal cause for revocation under state property laws. I needed proof. I installed discrete security cameras in my house. I began to document every interaction, every derogatory comment. In February, I did something I never imagined at my age. I traveled alone to Florida 3 times. I always wanted to know the Gulf Coast better. I found a condo of 900 square feet with an ocean view in Sarasota. Bright. In a building with an active community of retirees. I put down a deposit of $50,000. I also put my lake cabin in Wisconsin up for sale, a property inherited from my father that Michael did not even know existed. And then came March 7th, 2024, that Sunday. March 7th, I prepared a special dinner. It was not just food. It was a last attempt to recover something that had been lost, the connection with my son. I cooked homemade meatballs with Rose's recipe, the ones Michael loved when he was a boy. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth my wife used for important occasions. I bought fresh bread and prepared a salad with tomatoes from my small garden. I even cleaned the house for 3 hours, making sure everything was spotless. Michael confirmed they would arrive at 8 in the evening. At 8:30, they had not arrived. At 9, I received a brief text. We arrive in 20 minutes. They arrived at 9:40. Linda walked in with that annoyed expression I knew well, checking her phone, without even saying hello. Michael muttered a "Hi, Dad," without looking me in the eyes. The twins had stayed with Linda's mother. I served dinner. Linda looked at the plate as if I had put poison on it. "Meatballs again, Arthur. You always cook the same thing. It is depressing to eat here." I took a deep breath. The cameras were recording from the living room. "They are the ones Michael liked as a child," I said calmly. She let out a sarcastic laugh. "Michael is no longer a child. He is a grown man with standards." "Did you not buy wine?" Again, this cheap supermarket wine Michael ate in silence, sunk in his chair. I looked at him, hoping he would say something, that he would defend me, even minimally. Nothing. Absolute silence. Linda continued, "Besides, this house smells weird. It smells like old man, stale. I do not know how you stand living alone here. You should sell this and go to a nursing home, where you are with people your age." I felt my blood boil, but I kept my calm. "This is my house, Linda. I bought it almost 30 years ago. Here my memories with Rose and Michael grew." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, and always with Rose, up and down. She died already. Get over it. Life goes on. Besides, this house is too big for you alone. It is a waste of space and money." Then she tasted the meatballs. She took a bite, made an exaggerated face of disgust. And right in front of my eyes, she spit the chewed food back onto the plate. "This is disgusting. What did you put in it? It tastes horrible." She stood up abruptly, pointing her finger at me. "You are human trash, Arthur. Trash. Disappear. You make me sick. You disgusting old man. I wish you had never been born. I wish Michael had a normal father and not this pathetic old man who wastes our time every Sunday." I stood paralyzed. Michael took out his phone and started recording. He was recording his own wife humiliating me while he laughed under his breath, as if it were a private joke between them. Linda continued, "Look at you, 68 years old and still alone, clinging to this house full of dust and ghosts. You are pitiful. You are sad. Every Sunday we come out of obligation because Michael feels guilty, But the truth is, no one can stand you. Not even your grandkids want to be with you because you are boring and you smell bad. Tears began to fall down my cheeks. Not from sadness, but from contained rage, but also from relief, because those words confirmed absolutely everything I had suspected for months. Linda turned to Michael. "Let us go, babe. I do not plan to stay one more minute in this depressing place with this disgusting old man." Michael put away his phone, still smiling, and nodded. "You are right. Let us go." They left without saying goodbye. I heard the door slam. I remained seated, looking at the spit-out plate, the meatballs I had prepared with so much love. I cleaned everything in silence. I washed the dishes. I put away the leftovers that no one had touched. But while I cleaned, a strange smile appeared on my face. That humiliation had not destroyed me. It had liberated me completely from any doubt, from any feeling of guilt for what I was about to do. What Linda and Michael did not know is that I had spent months preparing my liberation. While they saw me as a useless and lonely old man, I was silently building a new life. In January 2024, after that Christmas humiliation where Linda slammed the door in my face, I hired George Miller. I explained my situation with total honesty. I showed him texts, recordings of phone conversations where Michael asked me for money with increasingly demanding tones, documents of bank transfers totaling thousands of dollars in loans they never paid back. George explained the concept of revocation of gift due to gross ingratitude. According to state laws, I can revoke a donation if the recipient has committed offenses against me that give grounds for disinheritance. The recording of that night of March 7th was pure gold, legally speaking. Grave insults, documented humiliation, the presence of my son laughing without intervening. Perfect cause for revocation. But my plan went much further than simply taking the condo. They needed to understand that they had lost everything. Not out of revenge, but due to the natural consequences of their actions. During February, while they enjoyed a vacation in the Bahamas, which I partially financed with a $3,000 loan, I visited Sarasota 3 times. The first visit was exploratory. I walked along the boardwalk, visited neighborhoods, talked to people. The city captivated me immediately. The second visit was more concrete. I hired a real estate agent and saw 12 condos. I found the perfect one. 900 square feet, 3rd floor with an elevator, large balcony with a partial ocean view, renovated kitchen, active community of neighbors, mostly retirees. Price $350,000. I put down $50,000 that same day, signing a pre-contract. The third visit in February was to get to know the city more deeply. I attended a book fair in the downtown square where I met Paula Roberts, a 65-year-old woman, owner of a bookstore specializing in independent literature. We talked for 2 hours about books, about life after retirement, about second chances. The morning of March 8th, 2024, I woke up with a strange sense of peace. I had slept deeply for the first time in weeks. I ate black coffee and toast for breakfast while mentally reviewing every detail of what was about to happen. At 10 in the morning, my phone rang. It was George Miller, confirming everything was ready. "Arthur, the documents are prepared. I am leaving for your son's residence in 30 minutes. Are you completely sure about this?" My answer was firm. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. George explained the procedure. He would arrive at the condo I had gifted Michael as a notary public, carrying the official notice of revocation of gift due to gross ingratitude. The notice included copies of the previous night's recordings, transcripts of the insults, and a psychological report that a professional had drafted after reviewing all the material documented over 3 months. The conclusion was clear. Sustained pattern of psychological abuse and verbal mistreatment towards the donor. What Michael and Linda completely ignored is that those security cameras I installed in January had not only recorded the humiliation of March 7th, They had captured 3 full months of interactions. Every Sunday they came to eat. Every derogatory comment was recorded. Linda telling a friend on the phone from my living room that I was a pathetic burden who just would not die. Michael laughing when she suggested it would be better if I had an accident. Conversations about how to speed up putting me in a nursing home to sell my house and keep the money. I had 19 hours of footage. George selected the most serious fragments, those that unequivocally demonstrated systematic mistreatment, but we kept the rest as additional ammunition in case they tried to contest the revocation. My lawyer was clear. With this material, no judge will rule in their favor. The ingratitude is more than proven. They have 60 days to vacate the property starting from the formal notification. At 11:15 in the morning, George called me from his car. I am 2 blocks from the condo. Any change of plans, I told him to move forward. I hung up the call and sat on my sofa, the same one where Rose used to knit while we watched old movies on Friday nights. I imagined her reaction upon finding out what I was doing. I am sure she would smile proudly. She was always stronger than me, more direct. She taught me that self-love is non-negotiable, that dignity is worth more than the comfort of maintaining a false family peace. George rang the doorbell of the condo exactly at 11:30. I know the details because he told me later with millimeter precision. Linda opened the door in pajamas with her hair in a messy bun. "Yes," she asked with an annoyed tone. George identified himself formally. "Good morning. I am George Miller, registered notary. I am here to deliver an official notice for Mr. Michael Vance, residing at this address." Linda frowned. "Notice?" For what George extended the certified envelope. "It is a legal matter that must be communicated personally. Is Mr. Vance home?" she yelled inside. "Michael, there is a notary here with some papers." My son appeared in a t-shirt and sweatpants. Confused, George repeated the introduction and handed him the envelope. "Mr. Vance, this is an official notice of revocation of the gift of the property at this address, promoted by the original donor, your father, Arthur Vance." Michael opened the envelope without yet understanding the magnitude. He read the first page. His face went pale instantly. "What is this revocation? This cannot be. This condo is mine. He gave it to me 5 years ago," George, with a professional but firm tone, explained. "The donation can be legally revoked for gross ingratitude of the recipient. Your father has extensively documented a pattern of psychological mistreatment and verbal abuse. Attached you will find recordings in digital format, certified transcripts, an expert opinion. You have 60 calendar days from today to vacate the property." Linda snatched the papers from Michael's hands. She began to read frantically, turning pages, seeing the screenshots of the recordings, reading her own transcribed words. "This is illegal. He cannot record us without permission. This is invasion of privacy." George smiled slightly. The recordings were made in Mr. Vance's private home, his own house. They are fully legally valid. Furthermore, the content demonstrates behaviors that constitute legal cause for revocation, according to current legislation. Then Linda exploded. She started screaming like she had never screamed before. "That old son of a bitch. This is your fault, Michael. Do something. Call your father right now." George took a step back. "I regret to inform you that any attempt at direct contact with Mr. Vance will be considered harassment. All communication must be done through legal representation. My card is included in the documentation. Good morning." He left, leaving them in the doorway with the envelope open and their lives falling apart. Michael called me 37 times that day. 37 calls I did not answer. They sent me 42 WhatsApp messages, from pleading to threats, from promises of change to renewed insults. I blocked their numbers temporarily. George had warned me they would try to manipulate me emotionally, that they would use the twins as bargaining chips, that they would promise anything to reverse the situation. But I had made my decision with a cool head after months of reflection. That night, while dining alone in my kitchen, I received an email from George with the signed receipt. The notice was officially delivered. The 60-day clock began to run. I looked out the window toward the back garden where Rose planted geraniums every spring. The $300,000 condo I gave them would legally be mine again. But more important than the money was the message. I was no longer the submissive old man who accepted humiliation in exchange for crumbs of family attention. The days following March 8th were strangely quiet. I kept the phones blocked and dedicated my hours to remembering conversations I had tried to forget for years. There are moments in life where the words of those we love take on a completely new meaning with time. That happened to me with Rose during those days of self-imposed silence. My wife passed away on October 23rd, 2019, a rainy Wednesday I will never forget. The last 3 months of her life were spent between the hospital and our bedroom converted into a home hospice unit. Pancreatic cancer consumed her quickly, too quickly to process what was happening. But Rose, even in her worst days, kept that brutal lucidity that always characterized her. I remember a specific conversation on September 16th, 2019, exactly 1 month before she went into an irreversible coma. It was late, past 11 at night. I was sitting by her bed, holding her hand, listening to her labored breathing. She opened her eyes and looked at me with that intensity she used to reserve for important moments. "Arthur, I need you to promise me something." I told her anything. "When I am gone, you are going to live for yourself. Not just for Michael. Not just to maintain memories. For yourself. Recover your dreams." I asked her what she meant. Rose smiled weakly. "You always wanted to write that book on sustainable engineering. You always talked about learning pottery, about living near the ocean, even if only for a few months. You always said when you retired, you would do 1,000 things. But you have been retired for 5 years and have done none. I know you, my love. You are going to stay in this house, waiting for Michael to need you. Sacrificing your time for a son who is already an adult and must live his own life." Her words hurt because they were true. I always postponed my personal desires, first to build family stability, then for Rose's illness, then for grief. But she continued, each word costing her physical effort. "Michael is going to marry that woman, and you are not going to say anything because you are too nice. But listen to me well. Linda does not love us. She does not love this family. She only wants what she can get. I saw it in her eyes during that engagement dinner in July. While you and I toasted excitedly, she was calculating how much this estate was worth, how much Michael could inherit. I tried to defend her, saying she was being unfair, but Rose interrupted me firmly. "I am not unfair. I am realistic. And I know you. You are going to give them everything because you think that way you will keep your son close. But hear me. Love is not bought with money, nor with eternal sacrifices. Either they respect you for who you are, or they do not respect you. And when the day comes that they disrespect you gravely, I want you to remember this conversation. Promise me you will defend your dignity. Promise me you will not let yourself be trampled. Promise me you will live, Arthur, that you will really live." I promised her, crying, although back then I thought she was exaggerating due to the effects of the medication. Rose passed away 5 weeks later without regaining consciousness. During the funeral, Linda was more worried about her makeup ruined by fake tears than consoling Michael. I should have paid attention to that sign. The following years confirmed every word of Rose. I became exactly what she feared: the compliant father, the family bank, the lonely old man waiting for calls that came only when they needed something. Until that December 15th, 2023, when Linda slammed the door in my face, telling me I smelled of old age. Something clicked in my brain. I heard Rose's voice as if she were next to me. "Defend your dignity." That night I started planning seriously. It was not revenge, it was liberation. During January 2024, I hired George, installed cameras, started documenting. But I also did something more important. I started recovering my postponed dreams. I bought a new notebook and wrote on the first page: "Life projects. Arthur Vance, 68 years old." Underneath, I listed everything I had abandoned: writing about sustainable engineering, learning pottery, living near the coast, meeting new people, creating something meaningful beyond the family realm. In February, I made my first exploratory trip to Sarasota. The city dazzled me from the first moment. I walked along the boardwalk. I felt the sea breeze. I observed retirees exercising, groups of seniors playing cards on terraces. There was life beyond Chicago, beyond waiting for calls from an ungrateful son. On February 18th, I attended a book fair in the downtown square. There were booths from small publishers, local authors presenting works, literary workshops. In one of those booths, I met Paula Roberts, owner of a bookstore called Southern Words, a 65-year-old woman, also a widow, with that contagious energy of someone who has found purpose after loss. We talked for 2 hours about literature, about how she transformed her pain into a prosperous cultural business, about second chances. Paula told me about her reading group that met every Thursday, about creative writing workshops, about how Sarasota had an incredible community of active retirees who defied the stereotype of the passive elder. She gave me her card. If you ever decide to live here, look me up. We always need more voices in our gatherings. I kept that card like a treasure. On March 10th, 2024, 2 days after the legal notice, I drafted a letter for Michael. I did not send it by email or WhatsApp. I wrote it by hand on stationery. I put it in an envelope and gave it to George to send by certified mail. I needed him to understand that this was not a temporary tantrum or a negotiation strategy. The letter I sent to Michael on March 10th said exactly this. Son, this decision is not negotiable. For 3 years, I tolerated disrespect because I convinced myself that keeping the family together was worth any personal sacrifice. I was wrong. Your mother taught me that respect is not begged for. It is demanded. The recordings demonstrate a systematic pattern of mistreatment that I cannot and must not continue tolerating. The condo will return to my ownership. There will be no meetings. There will be no negotiations. There will be no second chance. You have 60 days. Use them wisely. Your father, Arthur Vance. Between March 11th and 20th, Michael tried to contact me in every way possible. Calls from unknown numbers I did not answer. Messages through distant cousins that I politely rejected. He even showed up twice at my house, ringing the doorbell insistently for 20 minutes. I was inside listening to him beg from the other side of the door, but I did not open. George had advised me to keep absolute distance until tempers cooled, and they accepted the reality of the situation. But while Michael was falling apart, I was building. On March 15th, 2024, I received the news I was waiting for. The sale of my cabin in Lake Geneva had closed. $250,000 transferred to my bank account. I inherited that property from my father in 1998. I never used it much, maybe 10 weekends a year. It was a rural house of 1,600 square feet, with an acre of land far from the city center. Beautiful but lonely. Michael did not even know it existed because I inherited it long after he went to live on his own. With that money liquidated, added to my savings of $400,000 in index funds, I had accumulated over decades, working on international engineering projects. I had more than enough capital to finance my new life. On March 16th, I signed the final deed for the condo in Sarasota. $350,000 paid in full. 900 square feet on the 3rd floor with an elevator. 2 bedrooms, bright living room with access to an east-facing balcony. Kitchen renovated 3 years ago. Full bathroom with walk-in shower. Homeowners Association, mostly retirees, with a shared interior garden and social lounge. The real estate agent, a young woman named Nora, congratulated me on the purchase. You are very brave, Mr. Vance. Not many men your age dare to change cities and start from zero. I smiled at her. Miss, I am 68, not 88. I still have many experiences left to live. She handed me the keys on March 18th. I held them in my hand, feeling their physical and symbolic weight. They were the keys to my freedom. That same week, I signed up for a pottery workshop in the Arts District. Classes every Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 6 in the afternoon. The course cost $300 per quarter and included materials. The teacher, Amanda Davis, was 62 and had 30 years of teaching experience. When I explained I had never touched clay in my life, she told me something that marked me. Arthur Pottery has no age. I have 75-year-old students creating wonderful pieces. The clay does not judge your age, it only responds to your hands. I also contacted 3 small publishers specializing in technical essays. During the last 8 months, I had been writing a book provisionally titled Building Sustainable Futures, Civil Engineering and Environmental Responsibility. I had 230 pages completed. Fruit of sleepless nights, where instead of lamenting loneliness, I channeled my knowledge from 42 years in the profession. 2 publishers replied requesting the full manuscript. One of them, Sunshine Press, showed genuine interest. On March 20th, while I was packing boxes for the final move, I received an email from Paula Roberts, the owner of the bookstore I had met in February. There, I was very happy to know you are finally moving to Sarasota. Our book club meets this Thursday the 21st at 7 in the evening. We would be delighted to have you. We will be reading Hemingway, The Old Man and the Sea. If you have not read it, it does not matter. The discussion is free and enriching. Come whenever you want. Paula. That invitation excited me more than I expected. For years, I had not been part of any social group beyond superficial interactions with neighbors in Chicago. The loneliness after Rose's death had been devastating, but I had settled into it like an old, worn-out armchair. Now I had the opportunity to get out of that toxic comfort. On March 21st, I drove to Florida with my car loaded with clothes books and personal items. The rest would be sent by a moving company the following week. I arrived at my new condo past 3 in the afternoon. I opened the door and entered my space, truly mine, without ghosts of the past or others' expectations. I placed Rose's photograph on the living room table. She was smiling in that image taken in Hawaii during our 20th anniversary. I am doing it, love, I told her out loud. I am living as you asked me. At 6:45, I was in front of Paula's bookstore. Southern Words occupied a narrow but cozy space on a pedestrian street in the historic center. Windows full of books, posters of classic authors. Aroma of paper and coffee. I entered shyly. There were 12 people sitting in a circle, red wine glasses in hand, chatting animatedly. Paula saw me and approached smiling. Arthur, welcome officially to Sarasota. She introduced me to the group, 3 men and 9 women, ages between 58 and 74, retired from diverse professions. That first book club meeting lasted until 10 at night. We had not talked about Hemingway for more than 40 minutes. The rest of the time we talked about life experiences, personal projects, postponed dreams. I was surprised to discover how many older people were reinventing themselves after retirements, widowhoods, or family breakups. Teresa Fields, a 70-year-old ex-teacher, had published her first novel at 67. Manuel Ortega, a 64-year-old ex-accountant, gave guitar lessons to kids at community centers. Everyone had stories of rebirth. When it was my turn to introduce myself, I was honest. My name is Arthur Vance, retired civil engineer for 5 years. I just moved to Sarasota, escaping a toxic family situation. I am 68 years old, and I feel my true life is starting now. There were understanding nods. No one asked invasive questions. Paula raised her glass. To new beginnings, no matter when they arrive, cheers. On the way out, a man of about 70 approached. Arthur, I am Anthony White. I heard you are a civil engineer. I am a retired architect. I would like to chat with you about a project I have in mind. Do you have time for coffee tomorrow? I accepted, intrigued. We met at 11 at a coffee shop in the neighborhood. Anthony arrived punctual with a folder full of sketches and blueprints. Over the next hour, he explained his vision. I have been designing a concept of collaborative housing for seniors for 3 years. Not traditional nursing homes, but autonomous communities where retirees with some economic capacity can live independently but with shared services. Gardens, workshops, common library optional, community kitchen. The problem is, I need someone with structural knowledge and experience in sustainable construction. We architects design pretty, but you engineers make it work. He showed me three-dimensional renders, 8 individual cottages of 700 square feet each, arranged in a horseshoe shape around a central garden, common spaces on the ground floor, multi-purpose room activity workshop, shared laundry, solar panels, rainwater collection system, urban garden. It was brilliant. Have you calculated costs? I asked. Anthony nodded. Initial estimate $1 million, including land construction and permits. With 8 homes, it would be $125,000 per unit, way below market price for similar condos in the area. I asked him where he planned to build. He took out a marked map. There is a plot of land in Bradenton 20 minutes from here that is for sale for $250,000, half an acre buildable with all utilities. The owner is an elderly farmer with no heirs who prefers to sell to someone who builds something useful. Excitement invaded me. This was not just a real estate project. It was a real solution to a social problem I myself had experienced, the loneliness and marginalization of the elderly. Do you have investors? I asked. Anthony shook his head. I have presented the idea to banks, funds, construction companies. They all say it is too risky, that the senior market prefers traditional nursing homes, but I know there is demand. People like us who want autonomy with community, not institutional confinement. I looked at him fixedly. I can invest $150,000. I have liquid capital and technical experience. If you get the rest of the financing, I am in. Anthony shook my hand firmly. Arthur, I think you just changed everything. With your investment, I can secure a bank loan for the rest. Give me 2 weeks to reorganize numbers and present a solid viability plan. We left that coffee shop as partners of a project neither had imagined days ago. I was 68 years old, and I was investing in my first business venture. Rose would have been proud. On March 25th, I received an unexpected call from George Miller. Arthur, I have news. Michael and Linda have hired a lawyer. They filed an opposition appeal to the revocation, alleging that the recordings violate their privacy. We expected this. I have the legal rebuttal ready. The recordings were made in your private home where they were guests. Legally impeccable. But I want to warn you. They are going to intensify emotional pressure. Prepare yourself for blackmail attempts using the twins. He was right. That same afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Luke and Emma, my 2-year-old grandkids, holding a drawing that said, "We love you, Grandpa." The attached message said, "Your grandkids miss you. Do not make them pay for our mistakes. Mommy, Linda." I felt a stab in my chest, but I took a deep breath. I opened my drawer and took out 2 envelopes I had prepared weeks ago. During February, when I was planning all this, I wrote individual letters for Luke and Emma. Letters they would not read until they were old enough, probably at 15 or 16. In them, I explained honestly what happened, without demonizing their parents, but without hiding the truth. I had also created trust funds of $100,000 for each one. Money they would receive directly upon turning 18 for college tuition or personal projects. George had instructions to give them the letters and bank documents when they were of legal age. I replied to the message. I love my grandkids unconditionally. That is why I have secured their educational future without you being able to touch it. They will receive $200,000 combined at 18. Meanwhile, I maintain my decision. I will not negotiate using children as bargaining chips. I blocked the number immediately. On April 1st, 2024, exactly 24 days, after the legal notice, Linda appeared at my old house in Chicago with the twins. I did not know until 3 hours later when my neighbor, Mrs. Margaret River, called me worried. Arthur, your daughter-in-law, was here with the kids ringing the doorbell for half an hour. She was screaming that you are a monster, that you are destroying your family. The little ones were crying. Finally, I told them you had moved without leaving an address. She left furious. I thanked Margaret and hung up. Linda had miscalculated her strategy. She thought seeing me surrounded by my begging grandkids would break me emotionally, that I would give in to the image of those two confused kids asking for Grandpa. But I had already anticipated exactly that move. That is why I moved without warning. That is why I left strict instructions with George on how to handle any attempt at effective manipulation. That same night, I drafted an email to George detailing the incident. He replied immediately, "Arthur, this reinforces our position. Using minors for emotional pressure can be considered inappropriate conduct in legal proceedings. Document everything." Meanwhile, the eviction deadline expires on May 7th. If they have not voluntarily vacated by that date, we will proceed with judicial eviction. Do you have plans for the recovered condo? Yes, I had plans. I had decided to sell it immediately. I did not want to keep properties that tied me emotionally to Chicago or my previous life. The $350,000 condo would sell easily in the current market. With that additional capital, I could invest more in the Silver Horizon project with Anthony, or simply keep it as a financial cushion for my coming years. On April 5th, Anthony met me at his architectural studio in Sarasota. He had worked intensely for 2 weeks refining the project. He showed me updated blueprints, preliminary structural calculations, economic viability studies. "Arthur, I got a meeting with Gulf Coast Community Bank. With your investment of $150,000 as seed capital, they are willing to study a loan of $600,000 to complete financing. They need us to form an LLC and present a joint technical validation. Your experience as an engineer, plus my architect license. I reviewed every document meticulously. The numbers added up perfectly. Total estimated cost, $950,000, including land for $250,000 construction, for $550,000 permits, and fees for $150,000. With pre-sale of 5 of the 8 homes at $150,000 each, we would recover $750,000 before finishing construction. The remaining 3 we would keep for later sale or rental. Projected profitability 30% on investment in a term of 18 months. I am in, I told him without hesitation. Anthony smiled widely. Then let us sign papers. We constitute Silver Horizon LLC this week. You as technical partner with 40% share, me with 60% contributing design and management. Does that seem fair? It was more than fair considering I only put up capital while he contributed years of conceptual development. We shook hands, sealing the partnership. On April 8th, I received an unexpected call from Michael from another unknown number. This time I answered because George had advised me that establishing minimum documented contact could be legally useful. Yes, I answered with a neutral tone. There was uncomfortable silence before he spoke. Dad, it is Michael. Please do not hang up. I just want to talk 5 minutes. I waited without answering. He continued with a broken voice. I know we messed up. I know Linda crossed the line and I was a coward for not stopping her. But Dad, we are being evicted. We have 3 weeks to find housing with 2 small kids. Rents are through the roof. We do not have enough savings. Because we always counted on your support. We thought you would always be there. And I was there, I replied firmly. For 5 years, I paid your private health insurance, Linda's gym fees. The vacations in the Bahamas, the twins' preschool. Adding it all up, I transferred you approximately $100,000 besides the gifted condo. Where is that money, Michael? What did you spend it on? Absolute silence on the other end? Finally, he stuttered. Linda has expenses. Her public image requires investment. Trips to create content, I interrupted him. Your wife spent $100,000 of my money maintaining an influencer farce while treating me like human trash. You recorded that humiliation laughing. There is no going back, Michael. The condo will be sold. Find housing according to your real means, not the means I subsidized. But the kids, he tried the emotional argument. The kids have $200,000 secured in trust funds they will receive at 18 for college. They will also have letters from me explaining this whole situation when they are old enough to understand it. I love them deeply, but they are not bargaining chips. Learn to be a father without using my wallet. I hung up before he could reply. On April 20th, George informed me that Michael and Linda had finally signed the voluntary vacate agreement. They would move before the deadline to avoid the forced judicial eviction that would remain on their record. They had rented a 600 square foot apartment in a peripheral neighborhood of Chicago for $1,000 a month. Economic reality had hit them brutally. May 2024 marked my true rebirth. While Michael and Linda packed their belongings in cardboard boxes, facing the reality of their new, reduced life, I was building something completely different in Florida. My weekly routine had transformed radically, compared to those lonely years in Chicago waiting for calls that never came. Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 6 in the afternoon, I religiously attended pottery classes with Amanda Davis. The workshop was in a basement in the Arts District, a spacious place with 10 wheels, shelves full of drying pieces, and that characteristic smell of wet clay that I came to love deeply. We were 12 students, 8 women and 4 men ages between 55 and 76. None had touched clay professionally before retiring. My first piece was an absolute disaster. I tried to create a simple bowl and ended up with something that looked like a saucer deformed by an earthquake. Amanda laughed affectionately. Arthur, the clay reflects your internal state. If you are tense, it collapses. Relax, breathe, feel the material. In my second class, I managed to center the clay correctly on the wheel. The circular motion, the pressure of my hands, molding something from nothing, had a meditative quality. For the first time in years, my mind went completely silent. Towards the end of May, I had created my first presentable piece, a cylindrical vase of 8 inches, with intentional irregular edges. Amanda glazed it in cobalt blue and put it in the kiln. When I saw it finished, I felt genuine pride. It was not perfect, but it was mine. I placed it on my balcony as a symbol of this new stage. Thursday nights after pottery, I went to the book club at Southern Words. We had finished Hemingway and started with Steinbeck East of Eden. Literary discussions inevitably drifted into conversations about our lives. Teresa Fields, the ex-teacher who published her novel at 67, asked me one night, "Arthur, you mentioned you are writing a technical book. Have you thought about showing it to editors?" I told her about my sustainable engineering manuscript and my contact with Sunshine Press. Paula, who was listening from behind the counter, intervened. "I know the editorial director, Sebastian Moore. Let me make a call." 3 days later, I had a meeting scheduled for June 15th. Paula had pulled strings using her credibility in the Florida literary world. On Saturday mornings, I had joined a coastal walking group organized by my building's community. We left at 8:30. We walked 7 miles along the boardwalk to the marina. We were 18 regular retirees talking about everything except diseases and ailments. We talked about politics, culture, pending trips, personal projects. I felt part of something alive. During one of those walks, I met Gordon Martin, ex-economics professor of 64, divorced, twice estranged father of 3 adult children. His story resonated painfully with mine. "Arthur, I spent 30 years sacrificing for families that did not value the effort. My kids only call me when they need money. My second ex-wife left me for someone 20 years younger. I arrived in Sarasota a year ago looking for exactly what you are looking for: dignity and peace. Gordon became a close friend quickly. We shared coffees after walks, exchanged books, discussed investments and projects. When I mentioned Silver Horizon to him, he got enthusiastic immediately. Do you need financial advice? I worked 15 years in commercial banking before dedicating myself to teaching. I can review your business plan at no cost." On May 10th, Anthony and I signed the official constitution of Silver Horizon LLC before a notary. Social capital $160,000. My contribution $150,000. Anthony's $10,000 plus his valued project work. We met with the director of Gulf Coast Community Bank, Victor Sands, a man of 50 with 30 years of banking experience. We presented blueprints, market studies, financial projections, reviewed by Gordon. Victor studied the documents for 40 minutes without saying a word. Finally, he looked at Anthony and then at me. Gentlemen, this project has real merit. The concept of collaborative senior housing responds to emerging demand that the traditional industry ignores. I see clear viability. I approve a loan of $600,000 for 10 years at 3.2% interest guaranteed, with mortgages on the land and future construction. We left the bank as official partners of a real enterprise. On May 23rd, while Anthony negotiated the final purchase of the land in Bradenton, I received a call from George. Arthur, I have buyers for the Chicago condo. Young couple. They pay $340,000 in cash. No financing. Quick closing. Do you authorize the sale? I accepted without hesitating. That condo represented my past of unrecognized sacrifices. Selling it was closing that chapter definitely. Michael found out about the sale through old neighbors. He sent me a desperate message. Dad, that condo was my home. How can you sell it to strangers? At least you should have given us the option to buy it, I replied briefly. It was my legally recovered property. I do with it what I consider appropriate. Have a good life. June 2024. Arrived with subtropical heat and profound changes. On the 15th of that month, I had my meeting with Sebastian Moore from Sunshine Press. His office was in a restored historic building near the Central Market. Sebastian was 52, wire-rimmed glasses, and that analytical look of someone who reads professionally for decades. I handed him the printed manuscript, 230 pages, titled Building Sustainable Futures, Civil Engineering and Environmental Responsibility. He spent 2 hours reviewing it while I waited nervously drinking mineral water. Finally, he closed the last page and looked directly at me. Arthur, this is solid, very solid. It combines technical rigor with accessible narrative. There is a market for this type of specialized essay. Engineering students, industry professionals, public institutions. I propose a publishing contract with 1,000 copies. In the first run, national distribution launch in March 2025. Advance of $3,000 against royalties of 8%. I accepted immediately, shaking his hand with contained emotion. I left that office feeling completely different. At 68, after 42 years in the profession, I would finally see my knowledge crystallized in book format with my name on the cover. Rose would have cried with pride. I called Paula to thank her for the connection. She insisted on celebrating by organizing an early presentation event at her bookstore when the book was ready. While my life flourished, Michael's was falling apart systematically. On June 20th, I received an email from his boss, someone I knew vaguely from a corporate dinner years ago. The message was direct, Mr. Vance. I am compelled to inform you that your son Michael has been fired from our company for sustained poor performance and unjustified absences. He arrived late, constantly made errors in important reports, showed evident signs of untreated depression. We tried to help him for 3 months, but his situation worsened. I regret the family situation I understand he is going through. Cordially, Frank Reynolds, Commercial Director. I did not reply to that email. It was not my responsibility to rescue Michael from consequences he himself had generated. He was 42 years old enough to assume his decisions. During those days, I received 17 messages from him that I read but did not answer. They oscillated between desperate pleas and bitter reproaches. Dad, I lost my job. Linda blames me for everything. The kids ask why we live in such a small apartment. I need help. Another one said, this is your fault. If you had not taken the condo, nothing of this would have happened. You are an egoist who only thinks of himself. I showed the messages to Gordon during one of our morning coffees. He who had lived similar situations with his own children was direct. Arthur, he is using the classic stages of manipulation: victimization, guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail. Do not give in. If you intervene now, you will only postpone his maturation. He needs to hit rock bottom to rebuild himself from his own resources. He was absolutely right. On July 3rd, Paula organized a cultural event at Southern Words titled Art and Experience, an exhibition of works by senior students. Amanda, my pottery teacher, had selected pieces from 8 senior students for public display. My cobalt blue vase was among them, next to bowls, decorative plates, and abstract sculptures. The bookstore filled with approximately 60 people, friends, relatives of the artists, curious locals. When it was my turn to speak about my piece, I felt adolescent nervousness. This is my first ceramic creation, after 68 years, without ever touching clay. It is not perfect. It has deliberate irregularities, but it represents something fundamental. It is never too late to learn to create, to express yourself in new ways. This vase symbolizes my rebirth, after losing my wife 5 years ago and distancing myself from a destructive family situation. The clay does not judge your age or your past. It only responds to your hands in the present. There was genuine applause. 3 people approached afterwards, interested in buying pieces. I sold the vase for $100 to a 60-year-old woman who said, "Your story inspires me. I just divorced after 35 years of abusive marriage. Seeing that someone can be reborn gives me hope." I handed her the vase with emotion. Those $100 were worth infinitely more than any amount I had given Michael during years of forced dependence. The Silver Horizon project advanced rapidly. Anthony had closed the purchase of the land in Bradenton on June 28th for $250,000. On July 5th, we initiated procedures for construction permits. The hired technical architect estimated start of works for September if all municipal documentation was approved without setbacks. We had received 4 serious inquiries from potential buyers interested in pre-sale, all retirees between 62 and 70 years old, looking for exactly what we offered: community without institutionalization. September 2024 arrived with the official start of construction of Silver Horizon. On the 15th of that month, we attended the symbolic groundbreaking ceremony on the land in Bradenton. Present were the town mayor, 2 council members, journalists from 3 regional outlets, and the 4 buyers who had confirmed pre-sale. Anthony gave an emotional speech about dignified aging and architecture with social purpose. When he asked me to speak, I kept it brief. I am 68 years old, and this represents the most important investment of my life, not for the money, but for the meaning. We are building community, not just buildings. Works began formally on September 18th with a local construction company specializing in sustainable building. The schedule established completion for March 2025, 12 months, exactly from that Sunday, March 7th, when Linda spit out my food and changed my life forever. The irony of the calendar did not go unnoticed. On September 23rd, I received a call from Claudia Harris, journalist for the Sarasota Herald, specialized in social issues and community projects. "Mr. Vance, I would like to interview you about Silver Horizon for an extensive report. Your personal story, combined with this project, has potential to inspire many older people who feel their useful life ended with retirement." I accepted, nervous. I had never gave public interviews. The interview was published Sunday, October 4th, occupying a full page with photographs of the construction site, renders of the finished project, and an image of me in front of architectural plans. The headline said, "Arthur Vance, retired engineer of 68 Invest Savings, to revolutionize senior housing after distancing from toxic family." The article detailed my professional career, the loss of Rose, the distancing from Michael without entering into scandalous details, and my rebirth in Florida. It included textual quotes from me. For years, I lived for others, sacrificing personal projects to maintain a false family peace. When I finally prioritized my dignity, I discovered that life at 68 can be fuller than at 40. Silver Horizon. It is not just a business. It is demonstrating that seniors have capacity, creativity, and the right to live with autonomy and community. The article ended with contact information for those interested in the project. The repercussion was immediate and overwhelming. In 48 hours, we received 37 inquiries from potential buyers, 18 interview requests from other media, and 3 invitations for public talks. Anthony was euphoric. "Arthur, this is media gold. We should plan immediate expansion. With this visibility, we can replicate the model in other cities." I maintained caution. Let us finish the first one perfectly before dreaming of empires. On October 11th, the University of South Florida contacted me formally. The Department of Architecture and the Aging Studies program invited me to give a lecture on November 20th titled Social Engineering, Designing Spaces for Active Aging, honorarium of $1,500 plus expenses. I accepted trembling. I had never spoken before formal academic audiences. Paula offered to help me prepare the presentation. Michael saw the Herald article. I know because on October 5th I received an email from him. It was not pleading or angry. It was different. The subject simply said, "Dad," the body of the message. "I saw your interview in the paper. I have no words. You built a complete life. A business project. You will publish a book. You give university lectures, all in 6 months. And me, I lost my job 4 months ago and still have not found anything stable. Linda filed for divorce last week. She will take custody of the twins because I cannot demonstrate fixed income. I live in a studio of 300 square feet that costs $600 a month I eat once a day to save. I am not writing to ask for money. I just needed to tell you I finally understand. I understand who you were and what I lost. Not the money, Dad. I lost you. The man who built bridges for 40 years, who raised a son alone after becoming a widower, who at 68 has more life than me at 42. Forgive me, although I know I do not deserve forgiveness. Michael. I read that email 5 times. I felt something similar to compassion, but also firmness. I replied 24 hours later, Michael. I appreciate your honesty, but forgiveness does not erase consequences. I can forgive you as a personal exercise to free myself from resentment, but that does not mean restoring relationship or financial support. You are 42 years old, perfect age to rebuild yourself from your own strength, as I did at 68. Learn from this. Teach your children when you can see them that respect is the basis of any bond. I sincerely wish you find your path. Arthur. There were no more replies. Gordon, when I told him, nodded approvingly. Forgiving without rescuing. That is genuine emotional maturity. You gave him dignity by acknowledging his letter, but also consequences by maintaining limits. Perfect balance. The Silver Horizon project reached 50% construction at the end of October. The 8 homes showed complete structures, roofs installed, windows placed. Anthony and I visited the site every Friday, documenting progress. We had sold 6 of the 8 units in pre-sale, recovering $800,000. The bank was satisfied with the repayment rate. My lecture on November 20th at the university attracted 140 attendees. Architecture students, professors, real estate professionals, geriatric residence managers. I spoke for 90 minutes on inclusive design sustainability applied to senior housing and the importance of understanding aging as a stage of potential fullness, not inevitable decline. December 2024 arrived with mild Florida winter, but my life radiated warmth that had nothing to do with external temperatures. On December 12th, I turned 69. Paula organized a surprise celebration at Southern Words with 35 guests, friends from the book club, pottery, classmates, neighbors from my building, Anthony and the Silver Horizon team, Gordon, Amanda, even Sebastian Moore from Sunshine Press. When I entered the bookstore at 7 in the evening, expecting the usual Thursday meeting, everyone shouted surprise in unison. There were garlands hung a table full of appetizers, red wine, and a chocolate cake with 69 candles lit. I was moved to tears. In all my previous years, birthdays were celebrated with obligatory calls from Michael apologizing for not being able to visit due to Linda's work commitments. This was different. I was surrounded by people who chose to be with me, not out of family obligation, but out of genuine affection. Paula asked for silence and raised her glass. Arthur, barely 10 months ago, you arrived in Sarasota, escaping a painful situation. In this time, you have become an essential part of our community. You wrote a book that will be published in March. You created an innovative business project that is already changing lives. You learned pottery, you gave university lectures, but above all, you taught us that age does not determine your capacity to reinvent yourself. To you, to your 69 young years, to many more anniversaries together, cheers. Teresa, the ex-teacher who published her novel at 67, handed me a wrapped gift. It was a first edition of The Old Man and the Sea, the book we discussed in my first club meeting. The handwritten dedication said for Arthur, who, like Santiago, found his victory in endurance and dignity. With admiration. Teresa, I could hardly speak to give thanks. Anthony announced news about Silver Horizon. Friends, the project will be completely finished in February 2025. The 8 homes are sold. We have received requests to replicate the model in Fort Myers and Naples. Arthur and I are evaluating expanding, forming a network of collaborative senior communities all along the coast. None of this would exist without the vision and courage of this man. More applause, more hugs. That night, back in my condo, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine looking at the city lights. I took out my phone and reviewed the stored photos. There was one of Rose taken in 2014 during a vacation in Hawaii. She smiled with that special shine she had when she was genuinely happy. I spoke to her in a low voice. I did it, love. I kept the promise I made you. I am truly living, not just existing. I wish you could see all this. On December 16th, 4 days after my birthday, I received a certified envelope from Chicago. It was a handwritten letter from Michael. No digital sender, just paper and blue ink. I opened it with trembling hands. Dad, I write this by hand because I need you to know that every word carries real effort, not just mechanically pressed keys. 9 months have passed since that horrible night of March 7th. 9 months where I lost everything. The condo you gifted us. My job, my marriage, the daily custody of my kids. I live in a tiny studio, working as a food delivery driver, earning $1,200 a month. I see Luke and Emma 2 weekends a month, under supervision of Linda's mother, because the judge determined my housing situation is not suitable for minors. Every day I get up at 5 in the morning, ride an electric bike, and deliver orders for 10 hours. I return exhausted, eat something quick, and fall asleep, thinking about everything I ruined. But 3 weeks ago, something happened. I saw your lecture at the university on YouTube. I saw you speaking with authority about sustainable architecture, about active aging, about second chances. The man on that stage did not resemble the quiet father who cleaned in silence while Linda humiliated him, and I recorded laughing. I finally understood who you are. A brilliant engineer who built infrastructure for 42 years, who raised a son alone after becoming a widower, who at 68 years old has more projects and energy than me at 42. And me, I treated you like trash. I used you as an ATM. I allowed my wife to literally spit on you while I documented your humiliation as entertainment. I do not ask for forgiveness because I know I do not deserve it. I do not ask for money because I finally understand the problem was never financial, but of respect. I just need to tell you this. You are my hero, belatedly recognized. I hope someday when Luke and Emma are old enough, you can tell them who their grandfather really was. Not the old man we despised, but the extraordinary man who chose his dignity when we all underestimated him. I love you, Dad. I always loved you. I just did not know how to show it until I lost everything. Michael. I folded the letter slowly. I felt genuine compassion, but also absolute clarity. I took out paper and pen, replying that same afternoon. Michael, I received your letter, and I deeply appreciate your honesty. You have traveled a painful but necessary path toward maturity. I forgive you sincerely, not because I forget what happened, but because carrying resentment only harms myself. However, forgiveness does not mean automatic restoration of relationship or financial support. You are 42 years old, exactly the age I was, when your mother fell gravely ill and I had to rebuild our financial stability from zero. You are capable of rising as I did. Regarding Luke and Emma when they turn 15, they will receive letters I wrote for them explaining this situation honestly. They will also receive access to $200,000 in trust funds at 18 for education. I love them deeply, even if we do not see each other. I sincerely wish you success in your personal reconstruction. Learn from this. Teach your children that respect is the most valuable currency of human relationships. And remember, it is never too late to change, but the consequences of our past actions accompany us as teachers, not as punishments. With affection, but also with firm limits, your father, Arthur. I sent the letter on December 17th. I did not expect a reply, nor did I need it. I had closed that cycle with balanced dignity and compassion. On December 21st, Anthony and I visited Silver Horizon for the last time in 2024. The 8 homes were 90% finished. The central gardens sported freshly planted tropical vegetation. The community lounge had furniture installed. The first residents would move in March, coinciding exactly with the publication of my book. The synchrony seemed poetically perfect to me. That night I reflected on the year past. 12 months ago, I was a lonely old man tolerating humiliations for crumbs of family contact. Today I was a partner in a prosperous business, published author, university, lecturer, amateur potter, active member of a vibrant community. I had not changed out of revenge, but out of self-love. Rose would be proud. My final message for whoever listens to this story: dignity has no expiration date. Starting over requires no one's permission, and sometimes the greatest show of love toward oneself is to say no more and build the life you deserve, no matter how old you are, nor how much the process hurts. I did it at 68. You can do it at any age. Life does not end when others discard you. It begins when you decide to value yourself. If you liked this story, hit like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thanks for watching.